The bells begin before sunrise, not the clean, polite toll that marks prayer or market hours, but a frantic ringing that scrapes across the stone roofs and slips into beds and bakeries and guardroom alike. In the lower quarter, a cooper pauses with his hands on a barrel hoop, listening, counting the gaps between clangs, knowing this rhythm means something has already gone wrong. Somewhere near the river, a mole startles and kicks over a basket of figs. No one runs yet. They have learned not to run until they know which way fear is flowing. The city is small enough that everyone knows the mayor's name, but large enough that no one has seen him recently. He lives uphill, behind walls that are scrubbed clean by servants who pretend not to hear the insults shouted up from the square on bad days. He is a man of ledgers and seals, careful with words, generous with promises, slow with relief. The taxes arrived on time last winter, the grain did not. In the workshops, men argue over whether that is incompetence or theft, and the argument has lasted long enough to harden into habit. At the east gate, the ninth watch is still changing shifts when the second sound arrives, a deeper one, dull and heavy, rolling across the ground rather than slicing through the air. The cannon sits in its timber frame, like an animal that has been asleep for too long. It is not pointed outward toward rival cities or open fields. It faces inward, angled towards the mayor's palace, its mouth black and patient. The gunners are not soldiers by trade. One is a brewer's son with bronzed hands, another one rang church bells for weddings. Their jokes are thin and forced. No one laughs when the powder is poured. Down by the river, a woman scrubs linen against stone, the water cold and grey. She has heard cannon fire before, years ago, when the city braced for an enemy that never came. This time the sound is closer, more intimate. The river carries the echo upstream and back again, as if repeating the noise to itself. She wrings the cloth harder than necessary and thinks of her brother who guards the western wall and her husband who owes 3 months of tax. These thoughts do not connect yet, but they sit beside each other, waiting. In the square, stalls stand half-built, cloth roofs sagging, baskets of onions sweating in the early heat. Merchants hover, pretending to arrange goods while watching the slope that leads uphill. Children are there too, because children are always there, rolling hoops, chasing each other between carts, sensing excitement without understanding its cost. One boy climbs a fountain edge for a better view and is pulled down by his sister, not out of fear, but habit. You do not stand tall when adults begin to whisper. The mayor wakes to shouting long before the cannon fires. A cleric bursts in, breathless, ink still on his fingers, speaking too fast to be useful. The mayor sits up slowly, the way men do when they believe authority will still answer if they move carefully enough. He asks for names, he asks for numbers, he asks whether the guard has been doubled. None of the questions change the sound outside. From the window, he can see the city laid out like a diagram he once approved. Streets he renamed, towers he taxed, people he never learned to recognize by face. The first shot does not hit the palace. It is not meant to. It slams into a nearby wall, stone exploding outward, dust blooming into the morning air, birds scattered from rooftops. Somewhere glass breaks, the sound rolls downhill and back again, swallowed by cheers that rise before anyone seems to decide to cheer. The noise is permission. In the square, a man lifts his cap and throws it into the air. Another follows. Someone begins to clap slowly at first, then faster until the rhythm takes on a life of its own. A baker closes his shop door and locks it, not to protect bread, but to mark the moment. He has waited years for a sign that the city remembers how to be loud together. His apprentice asks if they should hide. The baker shrugs and begins counting leaves, the way he always does when anxious. Upstairs, this wife presses her ear to the shutter and thinks of the mayor's speech last spring. The one about patience and sacrifice. The one delivered from a balcony with fresh banners and no answers. The second shot comes quicker. Stone chips rain down the palace steps. The mayor's guard hesitates. These men are paid, but they are also born here. One lowers his spear without being told. Another stares straight ahead, jaw tight, as if discipline might still build a wall between him and the sound. The captain says nothing. He has already seen the square feeling. He has already decided that standing still is safer than choosing a side too early. In a tavern near the gates, an old soldier nurses watered wine and tells no one in particular that this is how it always ends. He remembers a duke driven out years ago, remembers torches and chants, and a body found later in a ditch. A young man at the next table argues that this is different, that the city is merely correcting itself. They do not finish the argument because the third cannon shot cuts through the tavern like a blade, rattling corpse and courage alike. The cannon is hot now, sweat streaks the gunners' faces. One of them retches and wipes his mouth with his sleeve, ashamed. Another murmurs a prayer he half remembers. They aim higher this time. The shot tears through a balcony where the mayor once stood to promise stability. Wood splinters. Fabric flutters down like wounded birds. From the hills, smoke drifts curling into the streets below, a visible line between before and after. Inside, the mayor's advisors argue in sharp whispers. One urges escape through the rear gates, another insists on negotiation, on appearing before the people, on speaking calmly until calm returns. The mayor listens, nodding, as if collecting advice for later, for some other day. He touches the seal on his desk, the symbol of office heavy and cold, and for a moment he seems smaller than the room that once amplified his voice. The crowd surges uphill, not running, but moving with purpose, like water finding a path. A butcher leaves his stall unattended. A clerk drops his ledger. A woman drags her child back when he tries to follow. Bells continue to ring, though no one is pulling the ropes now. The sound has become its own momentum. No one announces the dismissal. There is no decree nailed to a door. The cannon fires again, and the message travels faster than words could ever could. Authority is no longer inside the palace. It has spilled into the streets, into noise, into shared breath and dust. By midday, the mayor is gone. Some say he left through the rear gate wrapped in a servant's cloak. Others insist he was escorted out by guards who would not meet his eyes. The truth spreads in pieces, none complete enough to argue with. What remains is the palace, scared and silent, and the cannon, cooling in the sun, its work is done. In the afternoon, the city resumes small motions. Bread is sold, water is drawn, children are scolded for repeating words they do not understand. The old soldier finishes his wine, the woman at the river folds her clean linen. Someone chalks a joke on a wall and someone else wipes it away. Power has changed hands without ever being held. That night, the bells are quiet, smoke hangs low. From the hill, the palace windows are dark. In the square, people talk softly, already reshaping the story, deciding which parts will be remembered and which will be smoothed into something respectable. The canon rests ordinary again, a tool waiting for the next moment when words will no longer be enough, and the city sleeps, knowing only that sound, not law, decides the day.